Fantasy football trade deadlines are approaching. We get you prepped for it and Thanksgiving on tonight's program. So grab a drink or a leg and let's kick it. It's the IBT podcast coming at you.
Cause I've been in tune, out of touch, coming off the bench, trying to shake the funk, check your stat line, see who's up, that over under hit too clutch.
And I'm trying to avoid getting carried away with the jet sweep, sleeping on a trick play, predicting all of my moves like they seen every play. So I'm running it back, head down, get out of my way, and it's for the law with only one thing to do. I guess I'll say a prayer and put it all on the line for you, what they don't know, something they haven't seen. I find a gap on the screen and hit them right in between. Yeah, I got it, and I got it. Just one thing to say, yeah, what they don't know, something they haven't seen. I'm off that mean Joe Green, it got me fading between. Yeah, I got it, and I got it. The In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
All right. It is November 21st, 2023. And yes, Thanksgiving week is here. And listen, I know the Pilgrims, they weren't all that great of people. Now, really looking back on it, actually kind of fucked up people, actually, when you're really thinking about it. But we're going to enjoy this weekend of family, friends, food, and of course, NFL football anyways. I am Seth Woolcock. I'm ready to put on the LBs this weekend, and I'm joined by a man who just went through a battle with that son of a bitch, the flu, a guy who's watched The Office from front to back, and the pulse of the fantasy football industry, Scott Rainier. What's up, Scott?
How's it going? Yeah, I'm almost back to 100%. So it was not a fun week last week, but it happens. So got to catch up on some Netflix documentaries and that sort of thing. So
there we go, man. And what a good time to do it, because we got the fantasy football playoffs quickly approaching and a huge slate of football for about 4 days this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it's Thanksgiving, so we get, we're used to this one game on Thursday nights that's typically notoriously not very good.
Yeah,
but Thanksgiving's a whole different universe from that. It's one of the funnest days of football for me, just because every year, we would always go to my grandma's house. She's no longer with us, but it would, it's just that comfort and that familiarity of my grandma's house, how it smells, how it looks, my relatives, snacking all day, eating at night, and watching football. And I mean, there's been, especially since I started playing fantasy, because we've been doing that for Thanksgiving since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But once I started playing fantasy football, that added a whole nother layer to that day.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Because it's just this, like, this random Thursday, at least in fantasy football, where you have 6 teams playing and there's a lot of fantasy action. So, and my Seahawks are playing the primetime game against the 49ers. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm looking forward to it.
And the Detroit Lions are finally good, which is going to be exciting, because I've always kind of dug that 12:30 game. There's always been some sneaky value. A lot of times for the Lions, I feel like we get backup quarterbacks, whether it was Brett Rippon or some of these other backups. Tim Boyle, I think, started a Thursday night Thanksgiving game a couple years ago. So yeah, I'm excited to see the Lions actually be good and efficient here and have some fun on Thanksgiving. Tonight on the show, we are jam-packed. Annual episode of comping players to Thanksgiving dishes, talking about some trade targets we're interested in. And then from the forum, we're going to get to your questions here in the chat and also over at fantasyfootballadvice.com. And in the scope, our waivers a week early segment. Also joining us tonight is the guy I'm excited to see this weekend. Enjoy a couple bush lights around a fire. That's our audio engineer, Kyle Scott. What's up, Kyle?
Hey, everybody. How's it going? I'm out here doing the best I can. How's it going, Seth?
Hey, man, it's going good. Unfortunately, in the league you and I are in together, I'm not in the playoff picture for the first time we've ever done this league. It's an 18 playoff. Your boy's on the outside looking in. So I'm sweating that out a little bit, honestly, man.
Yeah, in that league, I mean, I lost for the first time since week 4 today. or this week by half a point.
Oh, okay.
And I don't want to brag or anything, but according to Sleeper, I had the best start sit percentage in the league. It was in the 90s. I don't want to brag or anything. And this is the first time I've lost because I had better players on the bench. I sat Tommy DeVito, and I'm
Ooh.
very upset about it. So
Who's starting Tommy DeVito? though?
Kyle was for
who-
weeks.
Who on? Well, unless you're
I
forced to.
actually was.
But okay, maybe you're starting Tommy DeVito because you're in a pinch. But who saw that coming?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. I guess that's the Washington Commanders here in 2023, man. Anything can happen. And hey, we'll talk about it later too, but it's a good day for me already. Matt Canada's been fired. We get one less tyrant out of the fucking NFL. Hallelujah. Thank the good Lord of Jesus. And honestly, like the Thanksgiving gods are out here. How about that, Scott? That was a fun note to wake up to.
I don't have as much emotionally invested in his
Yeah.
future or lack thereof with the Steelers, but I'm part of the football community and fantasy football community, so like I've been right there with everybody. I loved I hadn't seen it before, the footage of after the win when Chris Boswell came walking in.
Yes.
Like I guess that's where Matt Canada joined him from, his throne high on top. And he was like cheering, and Chris Boswell was just like, "It's not because of you, dude. I can tell you that." I was just like, "Oh, I love you, Chris Boswell." That's like the type of thing I want to say at work, like all the time to the higher ups, and I just don't.
Dude, I love it, man. I love it.
Like it's qualitative at this point, but stuff like this can spark things, which can then influence fantasy football. So we'll see.
Yeah, things are going to shift up here for sure in the next couple weeks, and we're going to talk about it tonight as we look a little bit further down the line. Who are some players who can help you potentially win your championship? We'll talk about that in trade targets. So I just want to shout out the IBT family before we get going here a little bit. Very thankful for you guys around this time of year, especially. Our channel has grown a ton this season, and our website has grown a ton, and it's all because of you guys. You guys are allowing us to make more content because you're subscribing, you're liking, you're commenting, you're engaging, you're telling your friends. Like that stuff goes a long way. So I'm very thankful for the IBT family, Scott, and I think there's someone who kind of keep this thing going on a weekly basis, even when we're not up for it. Every other, some days, you're just not there. And when you have all these awesome faces like we do in the chat every night, it's awesome.
Oh man, it makes it. Yeah, I mean, just the fact that it's just like it's proof that there's at least one person listening to what we're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's not our moms.
Yeah, because you and I both know there's been times. I remember I was helping a buddy. This was 15 years ago.
Yeah,
he had a Mariners blog, and he did his own little recorded podcast thing. And I don't know if anybody was listening, but I joined him a few times, and like probably no one ever heard it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like it's really nice just to have some of the same people showing back up, supporting the channel, supporting us. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate you guys. If you are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content. And let's jump into it with headline hijinks. All right, and we have some interesting dishes today here, Scott, because we didn't go with your traditional turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, really any of the usual Thanksgiving dishes we comp here in this episode. So I have to get the question out of the way. What is your favorite Thanksgiving dish? Boot to the butt. What are you going with?
I think probably if I just had to choose, I think specifically my grandma's stuffing with gravy.
Okay.
Just nothing crazy, nothing exotic. Stuffing's just one of my favorite pieces, one of my favorite parts of the Thanksgiving meal. But you know how it is, like your grandma's recipe, your mom's recipe that you grew up on. Again, it's that familiarity, it's that comfort that brings you back to like the ignorance of your childhood, when you eat it, and like the movie Ratatouille. But yeah. I mean, I don't really have like when those questions come up. What's your favorite food? Like, I don't have a favorite food really.
Right.
I like all sorts of food, but I think if I had to choose, like that's typically what I'm eating the most of.
I'm with you, man. The stuffing is probably, if you can get a good stuffing, I think it is probably the best dish at Thanksgiving. Have you ever had corn pudding, Scott? I think corn
Yep.
pudding is excellent as well.
Yep. It's not been a traditional thing,
Okay.
but I have had it and I love it.
And if you can like fuck with a good green bean casserole, it has to be done right. You can easily have a terrible green bean casserole. So it's very kind of on the line. But a good green bean casserole hits pretty well as too. Albert in the chat. What's up, Albert? Good to see you tonight, man. Thanks for joining us. Kyle, what is your favorite Thanksgiving dish, my man?
I'm with you guys. Stuffing is top of the line. I help my mom make our stuffing every year, and
Yes.
it's so good. That's taken up at least probably 45% of my plate on the first go through. But one of my other favorites is carrots and parsnips. I don't know if you guys have ever had that.
No.
It's a nice little sweet, fresh. It really brightens things up against all the savory, heavy food of Thanksgiving.
I like
And
it.
I hate
I
green
rock
bean
some carrots and
casserole.
parsnips.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And I also will say, I said it last year on the show. I'll say it every year, but a good salad at Thanksgiving is wonderful. I fuck with the salad. I know everyone else at my girlfriend's Thanksgiving could care less about the salad. I'm there for it. I'm defending it. Kyle, do you mess with a salad at Thanksgiving, or do you kind of get that with your carrots?
I don't think we've ever served salad at Thanksgiving, to be honest. I
Fair
don't
enough.
think, I don't think we've ever served salad at any family gathering, thinking about it.
All right. Well, fair enough. Fair enough. Scott, let's go ahead. Let's jump into our comps here. Where are you going? Who is someone you're trying to buy, sell, or hold potentially at this time of year?
I'm going to start. I'm not going to bury my lead. So my headline, and again, this is kind of an out there one, but Jaylen Warren is the jalapeno cranberry sauce. So I know cranberry sauce can get a pretty bad rap because it's by itself. Cranberry is not a very strong taste.
No.
I, for a long time when I was a kid, just ignored it. But then I started putting it on my turkey and I thought it was pretty delicious. But then my wife made a jalapeno cranberry sauce with just the perfect amount of kick to it. And so there'll always be two bowls because there's, I have my dad and my kids don't like spicy food. So there's always two bowls, the regular and the jalapeno. And I'm always just like, all right, I will plant the jalapeno cranberry sauce here. So I really love it. And so Jaylen Warren, I think is a buy. We were talking about this before the show. Like there's nothing necessarily quantitative to indicate that they're all of a sudden going to give him the work that a lot of us think he should have.
Yeah.
But Matt Canada is no longer the offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh. Now, whether it was his fault, whether he was the one saying, ooh, that explosive guy, way too big chunk yard plays. I don't like that. Let's go for 3-yard plays with Najee. Whether he was, limiting Jaylen Warren directly, I don't know. But man, Warren looked good in this past game. And for some reason, they went away from him. And, that, among other things, cost them a pretty crucial game in a division rivalry with the same record as the Browns. So, I feel like just kind of an uptick in their offense coming just because it's addition by subtraction with Matt Canada. So I think Warren's going to see more usage, and he's shown it when he's used this year. He's highly efficient, explosive. Some of those runs he had against the Browns, he's just easily the more explosive back. I'm not sitting here saying he should have 100% of the running back rushes. And Najee Harris should be benched. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I think he should be much more involved than he has been. So, you probably could still get him for fairly cheap. I don't know. He's, it's always tough because he's coming off a game where he scored a lot of fantasy points.
Mm-hmm.
But it is the Steelers. It's still Kenny Pickett. So, you might be able to get him. So he's a target of mine if my trade deadline has not passed.
RB11 the last month, I think that kind of puts into perspective a little bit what Jaylen Warren is doing. And it's very interesting as well, Scott, because at the beginning of the season, he was kind of up there pacing with some of the reception leaders for the running back position. Now he's more doing it on the ground with some of these explosive plays, which has been great to see. Who is someone you would be trying to trade for Jaylen Warren if you're staying in the running back department, or would you be more looking to move like a wide receiver 2 or 3 for him?
Honestly, something I was thinking about, and the only league I have Mixon in. Careful, I'm not saying you should trade Joe Mixon straight up for Jaylen Warren, but what I was thinking is Joe Mixon for Jaylen Warren plus. I think is something I might be trying.
Okay.
I'm concerned about like Joe Mixon. You know, he's been great. Like he's not exciting. He never has been, never will be probably. But he's been scoring fantasy points. He's one of the only bell cows in the league. But I really think this Burrow injury is it's gonna be tough on him. With being Jake Browning, he seems pretty confident and former dog. But you can never completely load the box against the Bengals with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and some of their pass catchers. But the first place to go when thinking, oh, this quarterback injury is like, oh, the pass catchers, the receivers. But I think I think that it's not gonna tank Joe Mixon, but I'm a little concerned moving forward. So he's got the name value. He's got the points per game so far on the season. He's got the workload where I would potentially try and move him for Jaylen Warren plus maybe, a receiver, in the same range as Jaylen Warren or something like that. That would be something.
I'm going to name some receivers straight up. Just give me a yes or no. Calvin Ridley.
You trade them for Jaylen Warren?
Calvin, yeah. Yep. Calvin Ridley.
Yes, I would.
Terry McLaurin?
Yeah.
Nico?
Yeah.
DK Metcalf?
No.
Okay. So I think we found the line. I think it's right. Kind of, I think that's a good line there.
And I like those receivers. I mean, Ridley, he's coming off a good week, so we can, 2 weeks ago, you asked me that question, like no hesitation. But with Ridley, it's just been so hit or miss with the Jaguars offense. It's been so hit or miss.
Yeah.
And then McLaurin and Nico. I mean, I'm a Tank Dell guy. I'm all aboard the Tank Dell train now. I still think Nico is going to be good, but I think he's going to be more of like what we saw last week, where he out targeted Dell, but had, far less production on those targets.
100%. All right, I'll go to my first comp of the night, and we'll stick with the theme. I'm going to go with the regular cranberry sauce being Trevor Lawrence. And why this is the case is every year I think cranberry sauce might be something, that I want to get into. I want to mess with it. I want to bring a little color to the play. I want to be like Scott. I'm hearing all my sophisticated friends, adult friends saying, hey, try the cranberry sauce. So I'm trying it. And every year it lets me down. It disappoints me. And I feel like that's Trevor Lawrence this year, man. Like you just can't get this guy right. He has a 2-point performance here in a crucial week number 10. Everyone benches him. He comes back and then it's 32 points pretty much on everyone's bench. And it's crazy, man. And now I don't know what to do with him because I called him droppable. I wrote the winners and losers article when you were out last week, Scott, week 10. And I said he was droppable after that game because it's Cleveland, Baltimore, and then Carolina in week number 17, which hasn't been great for fantasy quarterbacks. And I just don't know when you're going to play Trevor Lawrence and have confidence with it. And now he's too good to drop again.
Yeah. I mean, basically this week against Houston, that's a great matchup. I would start him this week, but you're right. Beyond that, there's one good matchup remaining. That's Tampa Bay in week 16. Other than that, he's got Cleveland, who with my numbers is the worst matchup of quarterbacks. Carolina in week 17, who's the second toughest. So yeah, I don't like his rest of season schedule, but he is kind of in that limbo zone. I mean, I told you before the show in one of my 10 team leagues, one quarterback, I already was kind of cycling through some different quarterbacks. I just dropped him after the 2-point game. And like clockwork, he scores 30 points. But I mean, keep in mind the 30 points was buoyed by 2 rushing touchdowns. They count. Yes, they do count. I'm not trying to poo-poo that, but you can't expect 2 rushing touchdowns. If you take those off his day, not quite as weak winning as it was. So, the needle move ticked back up, shows me he's still capable of this sort of thing. But with that schedule, he's not the QB I want to be relying on moving forward.
Yep. All right, Trevor Lawrence, you won't be on my plate anymore moving forward. Scott, go ahead. Take it with your next comp, my man.
All right. We're going to go with somebody you mentioned that I would not trade for Jaylen Warren. That's DK Metcalf. He is homemade whipped cream, which makes any pie you put it on better, Seth. This is in response to Seth's tweet the other day saying whipped cream on pumpkin pie, no bueno. And I can respect that. I can respect that opinion. But especially with just the store-bought stuff. But once again, I think my wife makes and whipped cream is not. It's not anything complicated. but it's so much better than the store-bought stuff. You know, you can de-sweeten it a little. You don't put nearly as much sugar in it, so it's just more of a kind of a refreshing layer and texture to add to the warm pie. So in this case, homemade whipped cream that makes any pie better is a good thing. And DK Metcalf is, you know, he's pretty up there, so it's not like you can buy low necessarily on DK Metcalf. But I mean, I think we talked about this 2 weeks ago. The Seattle Seahawks have the best remaining schedule for wide receivers, rest of season, and especially in the playoffs. And I mean, he's kind of come on a little bit. We'll see about Geno Smith's health. You know, it was fun watching the Drew Lock experience for about a quarter last week, but I think Geno Smith, even if he potentially doesn't play this week, I think he'll play out the season. And Metcalf, you know, his target share has gone up a few ticks over the last month. You know, he's been seen more. He's just kind of been more established as that wide receiver one on the team. And I mean, you know, because it's been a little bit of an odd year with him. Geno's been way less accurate.
100%. Way more than
I think we talked about this. You know, there was a game where DK had 14 targets, 30+% target share, which is typically something you would be in the top 10 that week in fantasy points. It's just historically you would, but only 5 were caught, and he wasn't dropping many. So they weren't connecting. They've started to as of late, and I think they're going to be passing quite a bit if Kenneth Walker misses a bunch of time. So yeah, if you can still potentially get him, you know, the Seahawks have kind of faltered a little bit lately. So there's a chance that you could still sneak him in, but he's a guy that I think is the best is yet to come for him this season.
Yeah, we're finally starting to see it a little bit. He let us down in week 9 with only 6 points, and then it's been 2 strong performances since then. So thankful he's getting going. And like you said, Scott, next couple matchups for him, San Francisco, Dallas, San Francisco, Philly, they're going to have to throw if they want to win those games. They can't play conservative, especially without KW3 back there. So I'm there with you on the Geno Smith call. I will say, and this will transition us into my next comp, it's not that I don't think whipped cream on pie is not good. I don't think it adds value. That's the whole crux here. And one, I think pumpkin pie is best served cold. I don't know why. I think it is. But I think pumpkin pie with whipped cream, dude, it gets the pie all like moist and like there's like just it's too damp. It's too damp, and I'm not about it. Even though it's already kind of a damp pie. So Marquise Brown is Cool Whip on top of pumpkin pie. Adds 0 value. And just in general, like, I don't think Marquise Brown has helped fantasy teams at all this season. He's had no better finish than wide receiver 14. He had a stretch there where he was solid, like scoring in the teens quite a bit, but never had that true ceiling game. And he's been single digits in 5 of the last 6 games. Like, he's been hurting you so badly. And for some reason, everyone thought everything was going to get fixed as soon as Kyler Murray came back. Targets are down from 8.5 a game to 4.5, Scott. It's only 2 games, but there was no Michael Wilson last week. That's what really concerns me too, because we've been talking Michael Wilson up and how he's this kind of, you know, bigger profiled receiver that Kyler Murray likes, and he wasn't out there. And it's Trey McBride who's kind of playing that role. I think he's the main read here in this offense now, and Marquise Brown, I think, is just going to be disappointing with the upcoming schedule. Bottom 10 at the position. So do you like Marquise Brown better than I do? You seemingly like whipped cream better than I do.
Well, I don't know. I do like whipped cream. I don't know if I like Cool Whip, though, which is kind of like the margarine of whipped cream.
Okay.
No, you bring up some good points. And I mean, I didn't fall in the camp that was like, okay, Kyler Murray come back will automatically make Marquise Brown a wide receiver 1. I did think, you know, the entire offense would improve under Kyler Murray. Nothing against Joshua Dobbs. Joshua Dobbs is one of my favorite stories of the season, of maybe the past few seasons. Yeah. I love that guy. You know, and then there was the one game that you kind of throw out with Clayton Tune. But I did think that I thought that there would be an uptick. Now it's still we're in that window of the season where saying something like, well, it's still a small sample size with Kyler Murray. Yes, but we are out of time. You know, we don't have time to let sample sizes, you know, grow necessarily at this time. I'm not completely off on him yet, just because it has only been a couple games back. But yeah, I mean, Murray was not. It was not Marquise Brown that was the beneficiary of Murray's return at this point. It was McBride. You know, and a deep touchdown pass to Rondale Moore a long touchdown pass to Rondale Moore last week. So is that going to change? Maybe. But yeah, they don't have a great schedule either. So, if you could potentially sell him like, hey, it's Marquise Brown. You remember him? He's good. And Kyler Murray's back. Here you go. Give me something good.
I'll take the pennies on the dollar at this point. I really will if I still have him anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, he has had double-digit targets in 4 out of the last 6 games. Some of those with Murray, some with not. But 3 catches on 5 targets last game. That doesn't give me a lot of confidence moving forward.
I would do it for Jaylen Warren in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I would do that.
Gus Edwards, Jerome Ford, anyone kind of in that range, I think I would do. What about wide receivers? Because I think I would do him for now with no Mark Andrews, probably Zay Flowers. I'd probably rather have Zay Flowers at this point now.
That one's close for me. That's about the range for me.
What about your boy Addison?
I'd rather have Addison.
Same. And I don't think that's popular opinion either. I think we might be in the minority of that one. But
probably not. But
okay. So
I mean, yeah, Kirk Cousins, was throwing the ball over the field, but again, Joshua Dobbs just makes things happen, man. I'm not obviously it's not been, and now with Justin Jefferson not coming back, there's talk of him not coming back till after their bye. So that's a couple more games for Addison as the wide receiver 1. So yeah, I'd rather have Addison.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So guys, if you can get off of Marquise Brown still while there's some hope, like you can't sell him for nothing, but like these are some players in the range we would talk about moving off of him for. So consider that moving forward the rest of the season. And Scott, you got one more comp for us?
I do. So this is probably a buy high. But Brandon Aiyuk is homemade pecan pie, but specifically homemade pecan pie that is made by somebody who really knows how to bake.
Okay. Quantify that. What does that mean? Someone who knows how to bake?
Someone who is good at baking, like someone who knows what they're doing, I don't know.
Okay. Fair enough.
I guess a silly way of saying a really good homemade pecan pie.
Okay.
Pecan pie is a little bit of a polarizing pie, but it's my personal, I will take pecan pie, a good one, over pumpkin pie 365 days out of the year.
Oh my God. Wow.
It's my favorite of the Thanksgiving desserts. And I'm a little bit biased because my wife is the cook. If you can't tell by now in this episode, my wife is the cook in the house. She makes a delicious one. So in that context, my favorite dessert, super yummy, sweet dessert, it's Brandon Aiyuk. And I feel good about this call with Brandon Aiyuk because I've been tooting the Brandon Aiyuk horn for a while, since before the season started. And then lately, for the last month or so, I've been talking about his upcoming schedule because he, along with the Seahawks, the 49ers have an amazing rest of season schedule for wide receivers. And I mean, he showed last week, even with Debo back, Kittle was there, McCaffrey was there, everybody was there. Purdy, he was the wide receiver 1, and that's his ceiling. That 130 plus, not just he got to 100 yards and maybe a touchdown. Those 130, 40-yard touchdown days like he gets and Keenan Allen gets and Tank Dell started to get. Those types of, true wide receiver 1 dominant performances. And I think he's going to put up some more. I mean, I think he finishes this season right up there with some of the elite guys. So that's why I kind of call him a buy high in a way, because I think you can still get him for less than some of the top level guys, but I think he is going to produce like some of the top level guys. I mean, the 49ers came out of their bye just humming. Like Purdy's healthy, they're back to, there was that blip, and as a Seahawks fan, I was like, oh, cool, they suck 3 in a row, they lost, but now they're back to steamrolling everybody. And so, I mean, and I've always believed in Aiyuk's talent since his rookie season. That was one of my bold calls with this site earlier this year was him over Debo. So he's a guy I'm trying to get everywhere if I can.
And I'll give you credit, man, on that call, because I think I've always doubted Brandon Aiyuk a little bit. Obviously, he puts up a huge performance in week 1, and I had to back off that take. And then I think I was just getting a little concerned. He hadn't found the end zone for a couple of weeks. The Niners were struggling a little bit heading into that bye, and I still didn't take the opportunity to buy him low, and I'm regretting it because we've seen some great performances since then. Obviously, 5 for 156 and 1 here in week number 11. So great to see that from Aiyuk, and strength of schedule, rest of season, according to the Fantasy Pros tool. He's top 5 for them. Is he also up there for you?
Yeah. They have They have a couple games against Seattle. And Seattle hasn't been quite the cakewalk that maybe they seem like, but they do give up a lot of work to wide receivers.
Yes.
And then they have a game against Arizona. They do have a game against Baltimore in week 16, but week 17 they get the Commanders. So they've got one of those championship week ideal matchups in week. And it's just one of those things where the Niners offense, because of how efficient and effective it looks to be back to after the bye. The bad matchups don't concern me as much as they would with a more mediocre offense, because they have so many different pieces that just the high value targets, there's going to be more of them for Aiyuk because they're going to be farther deeper in their opponent's territory because they're just a better offense than most of them in the league. So even with some of the tougher matchups, I mean, he's all systems go.
I think it's safe to say like he's a low end wide receiver one at this point. Like is that too bold to say?
I don't think so. I mean, if we start from last week to the end of the season, I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's the time frame we're looking at, that he's a top 12 guy.
If we redrafted today too, I think he would go in those top 12 receivers rest of the season.
He would. I mean, like going into any given season, that's pushing it a little even for me, just because of the inconsistency we've seen.
Yeah.
It hasn't been a super consistent thing. But I just, with players like Aiyuk, it's the same with Drake London. It's the same with Garrett Wilson. It's these guys who the peripheral metrics, the market share stuff, the efficiency stuff, it's there. It is there. So that's why I've always been, and it was there in college. So that's why I've always just been in Aiyuk's camp, because I believe in that talent, and we're seeing it this year.
I love it, man. I will round us out with my final comp of the night, and it's Isiah Pacheco is a roll after the pre-dinner walk with your cousins. And listen, I know the roll isn't always the most appetizing thing, but when you go off, you go off with the cousins for a little stroll down the neighborhood, and you cannot wait to consume that roll. Everyone's getting their plate. You're just chowing into the roll, getting ready to go there. And I think Isiah Pacheco is a lot like this roll here, Scott, after you get a little tuned up. His high total in the past month is 10.1. So I think a lot of managers are seeing that number and panicking a little bit. However, when you look a little closer, top 14 in opportunity share and red zone touches, seeing the 6 most light fronts in the league. Mahomes still keeps those fronts off of him. We saw it against Philadelphia on Monday night. He had a ton of room to run against one of the best rushing defenses in the NFL, and still averaging 17.2 touches per game. Like, that's borderline workhorse opportunities at this point. Best rest of season schedule for running backs: Las Vegas, Green Bay, Buffalo, New England, Las Vegas, and Cincinnati, week number 17, which still allows over 5 yards per carry. So I think Isiah Pacheco, this is the cheapest you're going to get him. I think you got to go after him now.
Yeah, he's the guy. I feel my dynasty leagues where I'm in win now mode. I tried to get him a few weeks back and people weren't biting. I think it's this. I mean, the Patriots are the last team on their schedule that is a not a plus matchup for running backs. The only thing I'm concerned about is they start bringing one more person into the box, because they'll just stop covering MVS altogether. They'll be like, we don't need to cover this guy. We just won't cover him. He can just run, do what he needs to. I mean, I feel kind of bad for him. Like, a game-winning friggin' touchdown he drops. Anyway, but yeah, no, I like it. He's not one of those guys that's going to win you your week. His targets have, he had some surprisingly quite a few targets earlier in the season, but he's only had 2 over the last 2 games.
Yeah.
But he has had over 15 carries in both of the last 2 games. So he's their guy. He's their running back. And he doesn't suffer from the tush push that running backs of the Eagles suffer from. If you get near the end zone, that's going to hurt Jalen Hurts. He doesn't really have that. So yeah, I like it. I think he's a solid RB2 for the rest of the season. And the Chiefs, the wide receivers, they just lost on national TV to the Eagles, but I still believe in that offense. I still think it's a really good offense. So I want pieces of it.
I think this proves more than anything that if they want to win another Super Bowl, they got to stop fucking trying to get Kadarius Toney, MVS. I don't even want to speak his name. It's like Voldemort on this show because I've been saying this for years. And then what the hell? Why is Justin Watson getting fucking 11 targets? That is absurd.
He had a key drop right at the end.
He didn't just have one key drop. This guy was dropping everything that was coming to him, man. Like, it was ridiculous. And Mahomes had eyes only for him. Travis Kelce was open a lot on the night. Rice was open a few times, and he just would not come off of Watson being his primary read. I couldn't believe it.
It's kind of bizarre because, like, it's not that they haven't had the financial or draft opportunity to go after an alpha wide receiver since Tyreek Hill left. That, you know, and I get it that like Travis Kelce basically is their alpha wide receiver, but it's almost a little bit cocky to think that they can do it without it. You know, this year it's almost seemed like Andy Reid lost a bet to Bill Belichick, and to cash in on that bet, Bill Belichick said, "I will choose your receivers for you," because it's very Patriots-esque with just kind of crappy receivers all over the place. I do like Rashee Rice. I like the potential moving forward with Rashee Rice. But this year, he's not really, you know,
he just doesn't get enough targets.
His yards per route run is really good, blah, blah, blah. But he's not producing fantasy points when he doesn't score touchdowns.
Well, that's because fucking Justin Watson's got to get his 11 targets, Scott. There's none left.
Doesn't make any sense, man.
Well, and I think that's the bottom line is what I'm trying to say is, like, I think Andy Reid's going to look himself in the mirror and say, hey, I got to stop trying to get these mediocre players the ball as much as we are right now. Like, lean on Jet McKinnon, lean on Isiah Pacheco, lean on your playmakers, your real playmakers. That's Pacheco and Kelce at this point in this offense.
Well, and that's the thing too. It's like, I mean, yes, they have won a couple Super Bowls, so it's hard to be like, oh, they're wasting the Super Bowl window. But I mean, every year's a new year, and every team wants to win the Super Bowl every single year. And so, this season, you know, I mean, they've got Mahomes still in his prime. They've got a top level defense on the other side of the ball, you know. So I mean, they're primed to win another one, but I don't think they're going to make it with the lack of weapons.
Yeah, I'm there with you, man. And if you guys see me eating a roll very viciously on Thanksgiving this week, mind your business. You don't know what's happening.
If you're aggressively eating a roll. For me, when I was younger, it was always like, oh yeah, timing. I have to walk the dog right before dinner. Sorry. It's the breaks.
Yeah. All right. Scott, let's go ahead and get to the good people's questions over in from the forum.
If you're up, stuck, thinking about what to do, here in between, we got advice for you. Back and forth all day, trying to pick the play. Let's hear what them boys here had to say. Presented by the Fantasy Football Advice Network.
Want to shout out the Fantasy Football Advice Network. This is a platform where players and creators can support each other. You can get real answers and real advice. And it basically takes Discord, Patreon, Facebook, Instagram, wraps it all into one good platforms for fantasy footballers. And I've been over there. I've been giving a lot of advice the last couple of weeks. I've been getting a lot of advice when I'm stuck too. It's just good to hear a lot of different minds in the industry kind of come together and get to the information quick. There's not ads on the platform. There's not all this other stuff that's going to kind of bog you down and miss the real key of the advice. So appreciate the platform over there. It's free to join the Fantasy Football Advice Network at fantasyfootballadvice.com. Go over there, check it out. Let us know how you like it. And let us know if you have any questions you want featured on the show from over there as well. And if you want, you can use the promo code IBT. You're going to get yourself 25% off your pro membership. But again, free to join fantasyfootballadvice.com. Before we jump into the question of the night from the forum here, Scott, we got one from Eris in the chat saying, should I trade DeAndre Swift for Bijan Robinson? All right, man. This is a close one to me in my rest of season rankings. I'm going to be honest. I've been rising on Swift a little bit. I think I came into the season probably lower than anyone on the team on Swift just because I was such a big Gainwell guy. Hasn't come to fruition. And it's really hard for me to not want Swift in this situation. But you've been pumping up Bijan. Eric's been pumping up Bijan for the right reasons the last few. Do you like him better than Swift?
This one's really close, to be honest. You know, this seems fairly lateral to me. I mean, Swift thus far, you know, is ahead of him with whether it's total fantasy points per game. And they're both very talented backs that have concerning situations. With Bijan, we're just hoping the right thing is done, and eventually Bijan, and I mean, you know, we got a good game from him, you know, since his game where he didn't play because he had a headache. we did get a good game from him. So we got a touchdown, we got some work. So, that softened the blow a little bit. And I mean, Swift's been great, but he hasn't been, there's been a little bit of inconsistency with him as well. And, the issue with Swift is, again, the red zone is a different thing for the Eagles, especially when you get down into the goal line situation. They're not going to stop doing that play until it's either banned or somebody stops them, which is great if you're a Jalen Hurts manager, but it can take away touchdowns from your running backs. So, this is a tough one. I'm looking at their schedules. Their schedules are fairly similar. They've both got a few some good matchups left, a couple tough ones. Neither of them just has a, noticeably better or worse schedule than the other one for running backs. So, I still think just staying on brand with how I've been talking about this. I slightly favor Bijan here.
Okay. I think I want the player on the better offense. So I think I wouldn't make this move. I think bottom line, Eris, it's too much of a lateral move, like Scott said. I think they're right. They're number 13 and 14 to me, rest of season. So you're really moving laterally. I don't think I prefer one or the other, but if I had to, gun to the head, I'm taking DeAndre Swift in this situation, just tied to the better offense. And do you see the way Jason Kelce is moving out there, Scott? It is unbelievable. I rewinded it last night to show Katie. I said, look how this guy just moves for the center. He's audibling plays with Jalen Hurts, calling things off. It is incredible. And I think they're going to lean on these guys down the stretch a little bit. No Dallas Goedert for the time being. And I think the passing game suffered a little bit from it last night. So I like Swift, but I totally understand, he's one injury away from being irrelevant. So that,
Side note, did you know that the Kelce brothers were actually playing each other yesterday?
No, I know. I had no idea.
They don't ever talk about it.
No, they don't at all. I will say I do love both.
I think it's really cool. I'm just being silly. No, I think it's great. It's great for their mom. It's great. Everything.
All right. Here's a question from the forum, Scott. What is Derrick Henry's rest of season value? Our guy Jay Mazzudio 24 over there at the forum wants to know, did he mess up by trading Derrick Henry and Donta Foreman for Jonathan Taylor and Romeo Doubs? First, let's just look. I don't think he did either. I don't think he did. I don't think he messed up either. To me, Henry's low end RB2 rest of season. There is some upside, but he's been RB20 on a points per game basis, Scott. And I think that's kind of how you have to treat him moving forward. He has 3 games with less than 6 PPR points, including just 23 total touches over the last 2 weeks. So how are you feeling? He does have a really nice strength of schedule, but there is some other concerns here.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, that I would much rather have the Jonathan Taylor, Romeo Doubs side of that. I mean, not necessarily because of Henry, but also because of Foreman. I mean, Khalil Herbert came back and dominated that dominated that backfield. Foreman did score a touchdown, but and Roschon Johnson is a guy that's still there. It's I feel like we talked about Roschon Johnson a lot earlier in the season, and it's just crickets with that guy. But it's turning back into that messy backfield situation in Chicago. I mean, all credit to Deontay Foreman. He filled in and was a great fantasy asset when Khalil Herbert was out. And if you ask me, I think maybe he still deserves to lead that backfield, but it's not looking that way. So, I mean, him being part of the trade doesn't really move the needle for me. And Derrick Henry, I mean, he's not that far removed from a good fantasy day, 100-yard day, but like you said, over the last couple games, and I don't think it's because they're like, oh, we need to not give Derrick Henry the ball as much. It's because that offense is a shell of itself as Will Levis tries to figure out how to play football in the NFL. I mean, he was seen as kind of a raw project quarterback.
Hell yeah.
I don't think it was really anticipated for him to start. And I mean, he came in and had that first game just out of nowhere, Cinderella story, 4 touchdowns, 3 to DeAndre Hopkins. Oh my God, everybody was wrong about Will Levis, but it's been pretty ugly since then. And that cascades down to the whole offense. So it's not necessarily that I'm sitting here saying, oh, we're all watching Derrick Henry fall off the running back cliff. I don't necessarily think we're there yet, but I do think just the incompetence of this offense now, I have a lot of concerns for Derrick Henry. So yeah, I would much rather have Jonathan Taylor, regardless of how that goes. It's just, that potential with Jonathan Taylor is, I think, a lot higher.
Yeah, Derrick Henry outsnapped by Tyjae Spears in 7 out of 10 games. And while Spears isn't doing like an absolute shit ton with that work, it's just taking away snaps from Henry. And like at the end of the day, like he was living on volume. And now that volume's cratered, his efficiency's cratered down to, I think, 4.2 yards per carry. I know that's not the end all be all, but when you're playing behind a kind of a shaky offensive line, that their best offensive lineman is a rookie who went through surgery earlier this season, like there's going to be some issues, of course. And like you said, Will Levis just kind of trying to figure it out here on the fly in Tennessee. And it's risky to me because yes, the schedule's great, Scott, but it's kind of like a catch-22. Like if they're out of it, are they just going to see what they have in Spears for a game or two and just run him into the dirt and just see like, hey, can he be the guy? Or do we go after a Braylon Allen? Do we go after Raheem Rocket Sanders next year in the draft? Like those are the questions I think we have to start asking ourselves. Is that what Tennessee and Vrabel are thinking?
I mean, it could be. I mean, Spears, like you said, has already been out snapping Henry. You know, he hasn't been out touching him necessarily.
Yes,
he's been out snapping him. You know, I don't know if they view Spears like a lot of us want him to be a 3-down guy. I mean, Spears is a guy I have stashed everywhere, and I'm going to be very stubborn about it, even in redraft. The season's going to end, and I'm still just going to be like, he's mine, even though the season's over and it's gone. I'm still going to be like, nope, I'm waiting for him to break out. So it's hard to, it's just hard to tell. I don't think they're not going anywhere with Will Levis. I mean, I think part of this potentially is to see what they have in Levis as well, because it wouldn't be the first team in the world to draft a quarterback high in the draft the year after they drafted a quarterback somewhat high in the draft.
Jimmy Clausen.
Because they're going to have a high pick in the first round next year. And I've seen some early mocks coming out that no one's mocking a QB to Tennessee. And I'm like, you know, the very classic meme or GIF going out right now. You sure about that? Because I don't know if Will Levis is it. So it's a messy situation. It's a bad offense. There's not going to be a ton of scoring opportunities. Not going to be a ton of high value touches. Already being outsnapped by the rookie. He'll have those games where on sheer volume he'll get you a good day, but it's not the Derrick Henry, the dominant RB1 set it and forget it situation that it has been.
Yeah. Hey, be proud of this trade, Jay Mazzudio, man.
Yeah,
this is a good one. Trade. This is a good one, bro. We got Hoove in the chat saying, hey, yo, what's up, Hoove? Good to see you. Hoove probably knows some Tennessee landing spots for quarterbacks this year. He said, what should I sell for Levis then? So I'll throw out a trade that I made a couple weeks ago right after Will Levis at his peak. And I think it was risky, but I'm in a situation where I'm just in a complete rebuild and I just kind of need as many picks as I can. I traded Levis and Zach Charbonnet for a first and Sky Moore and Tutu Atwell. Probably going to be about a middle first. And I know it's risky. I didn't get both of it's the first year in a dynasty league. So I didn't take them with first or second round picks, Scott. Do you think how do you feel about that trade? Would you be looking to sell Levis for potentially first round pick in dynasty?
I would sell Levis for a first round pick in dynasty in a heartbeat. Personally.
Would you do it with Zach Charbonnet attached?
What's that?
Would you do it with Zach Charbonnet attached to it?
You mean I trade Charbonnet and Levis for a first?
Yeah.
If it would have to be at least a mid or a high first for that.
Okay.
I mean, we're about to see the Charbonnet experiment unfold in Seattle, you know, albeit with some really brutal matchups upcoming. But I still think he's a future 3-down back in the NFL. I don't know if Levis, I was low on him coming in. I ate some crow for 1 week when he threw 4 touchdowns. I just don't know if he's the guy. So it is risky. You're right. It is in a super flex league, selling a young cannon arm, you know, quarterback that has some ceiling characteristics. This quick is a risk, but
there's a shit ton coming in this draft, though. There are so many, at least high upside quarterbacks, guys who could easily bust, with so many high upside quarterbacks that I don't mind moving. I really don't.
Yeah.
And I'm the high guy on Levis. Keep that in mind too. I'm the high guy on him. I like Levis, former Penn State guy. Wish we would have kept him. Here's one from Douglas. Would you trade away Kelsey and Charbonnet for Olave, Laporta, and Aaron Jones in PPR redraft? His running backs are Bijan, Singletary, Ford, Gibbs. Receivers, Devonta Smith, Drake London, JSN, Deontay Johnson, and Rice. So it'd be trading away Kelsey and Charbonnet for Olave, Laporta, and Aaron Jones. I'm not doing this trade. No
No,
way.
I'm not either.
No way. I mean, Aaron Jones, like you might not be getting him back, like anything for the rest of the season. Sears, like he could be laid up for the rest of the years. I don't know if the Packers will bring him back. He's technically week to week right now, so he could play in 2 weeks, but he also, could be shut down. I can't give up Kelsey, and that's the thing. And like Charbonnet is a bit of a lottery ticket right here in the rest of the season for redraft too. He's appealing.
Yeah, I mean, for me to make this deal, I think the Aaron Jones piece would have to be a much higher running back.
Yep.
Then I would consider it. But I mean, you've got to be able to cash in on Kelsey higher than this. And I mean, it depends on how you feel about Laporta. A lot of people are super, including myself, are like very into Laporta already. But as far as what the market value is, I think you can get more. And I mean, Charbonnet, I mean, we're at a moment where it's a potential high value point in redraft because he hasn't played yet. He hasn't been the starter yet. So there's all this speculation of like, oh, it's Charbonnet season that everybody has when a starter gets hurt. There's a guy we've wanted to get work behind him. He's coming in. He might not do that well with that schedule. So I would also, I would be trying to get a little bit more value back from those two combined.
Douglas, you'll have to tell us where you are in your league, what your record is, what your situation is. But like, if I can hold on one more week, and then maybe I can wait for Deontay Johnson to bounce back. Maybe I can pair a Deontay Johnson with a Singletary or a Ford, flip them for a higher wide receiver. Like, I think that's your issue here. Is like, I see you need a wide receiver. I've been kind of low guy on Chris Olave all season. I still don't like absolutely love him rest of the season. I don't love the schedule either. But like, there's other receivers I think I would like a little bit more. We talked about Brandon Aiyuk at length earlier in the show. I think he's an intriguing option. Maybe you can go get Tank Dell. I mean, you'd be buying real fucking high on Tank Dell right now, so maybe that's not the call. Puka Nacua, like Devontae, like there are, I think, better names you can maybe get for a little less here is all. I can't give away Kelsey. He's top 12 player. He's that dude. Hoove. If Mac Jones was in Pittsburgh, would Canada still be there? Oh man, I don't know. I can't answer that hypothetical, but he is not there, Hoove. So we're gonna be happy about it. No Mac Canada. Hopefully, no Mac Jones in our future. This will bring up a very interesting point in Pittsburgh's future outlook, though, Scott. What is Kenny Pickett? We're gonna find out the next 7 weeks. They're doing the dual coordinator play caller thing. I don't know if I love that. So a lot of question marks here in Pittsburgh, but I think we're going to find out a lot about Mr. Pickett in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, my prediction is we're probably going to see some fairly immediate results just in the style of the offense. I mean, and this is speaking more from talking to people like you and our buddy Herms, people that are a little bit more in tune with what's going on in Pittsburgh and just how limiting Matt Canada has basically been with his play calling. So, I mean, I'm hoping we see just more down the field, just more creativity, more going for touchdowns, more going for wins. I hope we see that right away. But it is true. I think we'll know in the next few weeks whether it was a Matt Canada problem or whether it was a Kenny Pickett problem, or like, I think probably both. I mean, I don't think Kenny Pickett is a super talented quarterback, but we will see. I think we are going to see like just how much of an anchor, and not in the good way, Matt Canada has been on this offense.
Douglas in the chat. I appreciate the advice, guys. If no one else needs help, I'm 5-6 and 1 game out of the playoff spot. All the contenders want to take Kelsey from the guy that's struggling, so most wide receiver names are open. Listen, man, I know you're struggling, but like a lot of times selling your best player, like looking at your team, I still think Kelsey's your best player. Like Gibbs is up there at this point for me too. I don't think selling your best player, like you have depth on this team. I think you just need higher end wide receivers. Like you need to consolidate somehow. Can you trade a London and a JSN and get up there? Can you trade a Ford and a Devonta, like, and just upgrade somehow? Like, I think that's almost the way it needs to go here, rather than try to give up your best player. Like, I know everyone's coming at you, and that's what they're trying to do. Like, they're trying to stick you with one of their mediocre wide receivers, but just don't do that. I think there's better names to go after. Scott, would you agree?
I would agree, and I mean, I think in this scenario, this changes it a little bit for me with just Kelsey being completely off limits. I mean, if you're 5-6 and you're one game out of playoff spot, meaning I'm assuming this means there's still a chance to you're battling for a playoff spot.
Yeah.
So if I'm giving up Kelsey in that scenario with a lot of suitors, I want something that's going to give me, there are no guarantees, but I want something in return that's going to help me make the playoffs. It will up my chances of making the playoffs significantly. And I don't think Olave and Laporta does that. Neither of them. I mean, Laporta has been great. He's still a rookie with a lot of mouths to feed in Detroit. Olave, again, he's one of those guys like the guys I've mentioned before, Garrett Wilson, Drake London, blah, 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 who have very good peripherals, just hasn't clicked with fantasy points. A lot of, a lack of touchdowns is one thing, but it's not a guy that's going to move the needle for you immediately in the next couple of weeks. So in this situation, the only way I'd be giving up Kelsey, especially if I then make the playoffs and have to face Kelsey in the playoffs that I traded to, I might want something that seems a little egregious, to really up my chances of sneaking into the playoffs.
Good luck, Douglas. Good luck out there, buddy. We appreciate the question. Hope you subscribe, come back, hang out with us again. Let us know how else we can help you. And Scott, some great questions from the chat tonight. Some great questions from Fantasy Football Advice Network. And let's go ahead and round out the show here with In the Scope and help Douglas, Hoove, everyone else in the chat tonight get a little bit better on their back end of their teams with some sneaky waiver wire additions.
I have the target in my sights.
Requesting permission to engage.
In the Scope.
All right, In the Scope. This is our waivers a week early, so we're not going to go over the mainstream targets. You guys know them by now at this point in the week. It's Zach Charbonnet, it's Keaton Mitchell, it's Josh Downs, Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed. If these guys are out there, OBJ, you should be adding them. We just did a waiver wire article on the site inbetweenmedia.com on Monday. You can check that out. We also have In the Scope up there with all our mainstream targets listed. They're also in the ticker here on YouTube, scrolling across the bottom of the feed. So, Scott, let's look past the mainstream a little bit. Who is someone that you're looking to potentially grab for a $0 fab bid or potentially off of free agency after the waivers run?
So this gets a little tougher as the season goes along, because
so much tougher.
We're digging deep into the very, very low rostership world. I feel like whenever these In the Scopes come up, just side note, I start thinking of guys and then I go into the show sheet and they're already listed in the mainstream targets. You know what I mean? So one mainstream target we should at least mention is Isaiah Likely. Don't spend whatever fab, don't spend all the rest of your fab like everybody did, early in the season. But Mark Andrews is out for the season, so Isaiah Likely should be rostered. And he's at 1% rostership right now. So my In the Scope, this is kind of a deep cut, but this is a guy I've kind of been having my eye on more in dynasty circles, but could pan out potentially in redraft, and that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers rookie wide receiver Trey Palmer. So he's had a few moments this year, scoring touchdowns, but what surprised me is, he's been above a 70% route participation and above a 75% snap share over the last 4 games. His targets per route run, not super fantastic. His yards per route run, but we're not talking about a guy I think is going to come in and win your league. We're talking about a guy that has been trending upward. He's had six targets, 4 targets, 4 targets, 6 targets in his last 4 games, which if you do math, that's an average of 5 targets with an average of 4 catches per game. So, nothing crazy, but he ran a 4.3 340. He was a 6th round pick. So, the odds of him even making the team and being in this situation were low. He's there. He's been playing a lot. His snap share dipped down in the middle of the season, but it's gone back up. He's on the field a lot with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And he's a burner. So, again, he hasn't been putting up huge fantasy days, but he's a guy that's involved on a team that passes the ball a lot. So, if you've got room, he is a guy that could be used in a pinch.
Trey Palmer's a really
absolutely free at 0.8% rostered.
Great feel-good story, too. He was with LSU kind of battling at the back end of their roster for a couple of years, transfers out to the Big Ten, Nebraska, and just breaks out, does a lot of different things for them. He was kind of known as a flyer at one point. They finally figured out, hey, this guy's fast as fuck. Like why don't we run some slants with him?
Fast.
Yeah, dude. He can go, and I think what's could be some sneaky upside with Palmer too, and like I don't ever want to predict or analyze injuries or anything like that. But this Tampa Bay offense has been very, very healthy this season. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin have been no stranger to the IR, to missing games, and they've been very healthy. Same with Rachaad White. So if anything were to happen to one of those guys, someone might have to step up, and that could be Trey Palmer. So knock on wood, it doesn't happen. Here's a question from our buddy Cruz in the chat. What's up, Cruz? Hope you're having a great Tuesday evening, man. Thanks for joining us. And the question, start 6, Diggs, CD, Puka, Tank Dell, Gibbs, Pollard, Achane, Kyren. Thoughts on any trades to upgrade RB, or should I stick with my squad? Half point PPR, 8-3.
Sit one.
Okay, so sit one. Well, CD, Diggs, Gibbs, and Tank are auto starts at this point, right?
As long as he doesn't mean Tank Bigsby.
Oh,
just joking. Yeah, no. I mean, I don't actually know at this current moment what the injury status is with Achane. Do you?
No. Mike McDaniels was doing his best Bill Belichick and wasn't telling us shit in the press conference.
This decision could be made for you if Achane doesn't play.
I don't think I'm playing Achane regardless.
Honestly, after what happened,
risky.
I rolled him out there everywhere I had him, and I don't think I'm playing Achane again until he gets a full game under his belt. So that's probably my sit.
Yeah, I'm with you there, man. Like Kyron's coming back, and it's kind of the same situation, but we've seen Devon Achane get hurt early in preseason this year, came back, was hurt early in the season, and
Yeah, I mean, honestly, even if Achane, let's say he came back last week and had a mediocre game, he still might be my sit with this group.
It's the Jets too. Like the Jets
could be the other one, but I mean, they just waived Darrell Henderson, so I mean, I think they're preparing to bring Kyren Williams back into his. I think Royce Freeman's earned some work. Royce Freeman's been serviceable. But I think Kyron's coming back into a majority role in that backfield. So,
also against the Cardinals, smash fucking matchup.
Yeah.
And who doesn't want to watch little Tony Pollard on Thanksgiving, man? Pollard turning it around recently, so
I'm back in the Pollard camp because I just traded for him in Dynasty.
There we go. Also playing the Commanders, so another great matchup for him. So I think you're gonna have success there, Cruz. Don't overthink this one. Great roster, by the way, man.
Yeah, that's a good. Whenever it's like so tough to figure out a sit among 6 players because they're all so good is a good thing. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, good luck rest of the season, man. Hope you're tuned in, subscribe to IBT, and keeping up with us and what we're doing over here so we can keep helping you along the way. I'm going to throw out a quick one here. I have 2 tonight. I just couldn't really decide, and one of them is very speculative. It's Kenny McIntosh, running back Seattle Seahawks. 7th round pick. He's expected to make his debut on Thursday on Thanksgiving against the 49ers. He was nursing that knee sprain pretty much all season. Came back in week 10, was healthy, was a scratch in week number 11 as well. Mostly because DJ Dallas plays special teams, I think, and they're not going to take him off the field because he does that so well. But Pete Carroll coming out and stirring shit up. First of all, he says Kenneth Walker's oblique injury is, quote, legit. And also said that McIntosh is, quote, going right to the front. Does that mean front of the game plan? Does that mean front of the depth chart? Who the hell knows? Kenny McIntosh, like, the guy didn't have a prolific career. We can't act like he was, DeAndre Swift at Georgia or even James Cook for that matter. Still, though, had over 1,300 yards as a senior. Very good pass catcher. And it'll be interesting to see, does he take that lead role? Or does he take kind of the Charbonnet change of pace? Or is it just a 3-headed committee and he's kind of shuffled to the back? It's not a bad speculative ad because we have no idea how long Kenneth Walker is going to be out. It could be a Christian McCaffrey oblique injury and he's back next week. Or he could be out multiple weeks. Scott, how do you feel about McIntosh being a fan and follower of the Seattle Seahawks?
I mean, I think he's a good speculative ad. I think while Walker is out, this is Charbonnet's backfield. I don't think DJ Dallas or Kenny McIntosh are going to. I think they're going to.
Tell me Pete Carroll's lying. You tell me Pete Carroll.
I think they're going to play a role, but I just think that the separation in talent between him and DJ Dallas and Kenny McIntosh is going to keep. He was already starting to see the field with Kenneth Walker more. I'm not saying that the Seahawks are always going to use a rotation, But I think what this could be is that, and like you said it, the reason Kenny McIntosh hasn't found the field yet is because DJ Dallas, not only does he play special teams, he's been a productive returner this year for the Seahawks.
Yeah, he's good.
Which was part of the reason they originally drafted him. He was a returner with Miami. I remember as a fan, I was always like, this guy doesn't do much on his returns. But this year he's been solid. So, it could be that, McIntosh is coming in to take some of the receiving work that DJ Dallas has been having on offense, so he can, be fresh for the return game. But I that's just speculation. That's kind of hope that, because I'd love to see Kenny McIntosh. I'd love to see him hit. I'd love to see the Seahawks find a diamond in the rough in the 7th round. I thought McIntosh should have been drafted higher. I was a little surprised he fell that far. I mean, I wasn't in love with him as a college prospect, but 7th round seemed kind of low. So I think it will probably be more of a messy rotation between him and Dallas behind Charbonnet.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they've got a schedule coming up where they're going to need to rely on the pass. They're never going to just rely on the pass exclusively. But these matchups they have, not only are they easier to pass on than run on, they're easier to pass to running backs on than run on. So we could see some PPR value for Kenny McIntosh moving forward.
Low key gives me like little Thomas Rawls vibes. Like that year when Thomas Rawls came in, Thomas Rawls wasn't supposed to be the main backup. I can't remember who was supposed to be, and Thomas Rawls kind of
Rawls was undrafted. Rawls to me was kind of the original Pacheco. You see all the jokes about like, I saw one on Twitter where it was like two doors smashed down, and somebody's tweeted like, it was Isiah Pacheco gaining 4 yards. Rawls was the original guy that just ran like he was on fire. So I like the Rawls shout out.
Cruz, sorry, I missed your original question here in the chat, man. McBride or Ferguson rest of season? Feels like I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. I'm trying to roster both if I have them. I really like, but it is easily McBride. Yeah, you're right, Scott. McBride is so much better. Like, just as far as a target standpoint, the guy is seeing the targets, and he's so productive and athletic. Like he's making the most of them.
Yeah, I mean, like he had that first breakout game, and you could point to garbage time for a lot of that. But he then had another game with double-digit targets, 90 yards, touchdown. I think it was Murray's first game back. Like he targeted the hell out of Trey McBride. I mean, I think McBride, I think he's he's up there in the top 6 guys from here on out. Like I think he's legit. Which is great to see, because we kind of forgot about him for a year. He was the highest drafted tight end last year in the 2nd round, and due to injury, due to Zach Ertz, he just kind of went forgotten about. I do like Jake Ferguson though.
Same.
So yeah, if I have room for 2, I'd like to have both of these guys. But McBride last week, it didn't really pan out that greatly, but I played him in my flex alongside Laporta. Like McBride's one of those guys, especially in PPR. Like we said before, I think he's the guy that's going to be on more of the end of Kyler Murray's targets than Marquise Brown.
Yep. Jake Ferguson does have the best tight end schedule rest of the season. So again, there's value here. If you're talking about dropping one of them, I would keep both. Can you leverage one in a trade, preferably Ferguson? But hey, shout out in the scope, because we spotlighted Trey McBride early in the season. I think it was week 5 or week 6. There was one of those weeks he had really no production yet, but he had run a lot more routes, and that was before Zach Ertz even got hurt. So shout out to In the Scope, because it got McBride on a couple of my teams and hopefully some of our listeners as well early. Appreciate the question, Cruz. I'm going to round us out, Scott, tonight with my final In the Scope target. And just another guy, I'm picking up speculative here. It's Dearness Johnson for the Jacksonville Jaguars. 54 yards, 8 touches in week 11 versus the Titans. A little bit garbage timey, but he came out, and at the beginning of the second half, the first full drive, he had it, and he was explosive on it, man. RB 39 and 35 the last 2 weeks on 13 touches. And I think he's actually the handcuff. I know Tank Bigsby's kind of been the perceived handcuff to Travis Etienne, but dude, Tank Bigsby sucks. Tank Bigsby is god awful. Causes interceptions on the tip balls all the time. He's dropped like 3 balls that have turned into interceptions. Big penalty on him on special teams last week as well, averaging 2.9 yards per carry. And I still think ETN's going to be that dude like rest of the season. I'm not too worried about it, but he did see a season low of touches in week 10 with 13, and back-to-back weeks got under a 70% snap share for the first time all season. I mean, Travis Etienne has taken so many touches. I think we kind of knew a little bit of regression was going to come because, I mean, the touches were just off the chart early in the season and the snaps. So, like, it's good to actually see him getting a little rest, and I think Dearness is going to be that guy to spell him a little bit. Potentially week 17 matchup at the Panthers, maybe ETN doesn't go if they have that division locked up and you can throw out Dearness. I just want him on my team because I have a lot of ETN, so I think he's someone people should be adding, Scott.
Yeah, I've always liked Dearness Johnson. He was in Cleveland. He's one of those guys, like, I mean, not quite to the same level as Devin Singletary, but that I wish would go somewhere and get a shot like Devin Singletary got this year. I mean, I think Dearness Johnson's a solid running back. Same. I think you're right. I think he is the more likely handcuff to Travis Etienne. Yeah, I mean, Etienne's still, he's still top 4 in like our running back opportunity share. He's been a bell cow. So, great for Etienne owners. Will that continue? Easily could just continue. We could just continue to see really no value outside of Etienne in the Jacksonville running game. However, they're sitting at they're 7-3 right now. They're atop that division and probably going to stay on top of that division.
If they beat the Texans this week, I think they really are going to solidify that then.
Oh, why did I forget about the Texans? Never mind. That could be a neck and neck race to where they wouldn't be resting Etienne. But anyway, I think there's a chance that this guy gets more involved because we are hitting the home stretch. We're approaching the fantasy playoffs and whatnot. But these teams are starting to lock in potential playoff spots, like real NFL playoffs.
Yep.
So letting someone like Dearness Johnson cut into Etienne's time workload, whether it's just throughout a game or in garbage time sometime, could have some value.
Love it, man. And Scott, I appreciate you being here with me, man. And I appreciate the IBT family rolling with us tonight as well. I just wanted to say one last piece of advice, more life, unsolicited life advice from your pal Seth tonight. And Scott, maybe you can weigh on this too. Like with the holidays this year and just in general, now kind of moving forward where I am in life, like I'm trying to like set expectations with my family, with my friends, and just saying like, hey, I can't do this year. I can't especially with doing what we do here, content creation. It's really hard for me to do a lot of things because we're here. We have a dedicated schedule. We got to continue to follow throughout the holidays and like still make time for your loved ones. But like it can be on your own time. It doesn't always have to be the date of Thanksgiving. You can have a Saturday dinner or a Sunday dinner, like just something to keep in mind, like have boundaries and just be respectful of other people's boundaries too. If they say they can't make something, cause I felt like growing up, it was like you were expected to be at every, family function for the holidays. And I think we should, normalize. And I think we are a little bit more as a society, Scott, like, hey, just say when you need time for yourself to rest. And like, so the holidays are actually fun for you. Cause I burned myself out so many years going across the state, trying to get to everyone's function.
Yeah. I mean, it's good advice. Do what works for you, but I agree. I mean, in my personal situation, especially before I got married, I definitely fell in the camp of we were at the same place on the holiday every year, but it was pleasant and it was all in this region. We weren't traveling more than an hour.
Okay.
So, it's not, but I get it. I get like, I've then, once I got married and there's multiple families involved, there were years where we tried to do both and we had to say, okay, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to start alternating. So this year we'll do Thanksgiving with her family. We'll do Christmas with mine. Next year we switch them. And we've been doing that, which has helped a lot to just have one thing to focus on. But yeah, and I mean the holidays can be a tough time. As like a recovering addict, alcoholic, whatever. I know that holidays can be a super triggering time, for something as simple as you're getting together and a bunch of people are drinking in front of you or whatever. So as I always do, if anybody ever needs to reach out to talk about that kind of stuff, especially over the holidays, if you want to reach out to me on Twitter, DM me, I'll always respond. I'm not going to be like, no, it's Thanksgiving, so I'm not, screw that. I'm on Twitter all the time. It doesn't matter. But yeah. I mean, take care of yourself first and foremost is the point.
Awesome. Well, Scott, I appreciate you being here, man. I appreciate the IBT family out there. Kyle, looking forward to seeing you this weekend, my brother. And guys, enjoy the holidays. Be safe out there. If you're going to be having some, Go. Let's do,
Huskies,
baby.
number
Let's
4,
go,
baby.
Huskies. If you guys are drinking this weekend, please have a designated driver. Call an Uber. Final thoughts from me though. But enjoy football. Enjoy week number 12. We only get so many left of these, so let's do it big this weekend, guys. Until next time, you know what to do. Keep it in between. Thanks, y'all.